It's Friday at more or less 10. And I always say that. So I'll have to come up with something different, just to get a little variety. And I'm working on these minifigs for our Dungeons and Dragons show. These are the divorcees. And, the way the camera is, all you can see is, I tried this before. Kind of works. You can kind of do that. I can also pick them up and show them to you. But these are 4 members of the Company of Blades, the mercenary group that our group is part of. I got 2 of them completed. The gnome cleric. Okay, there she is. And the orc spellcaster. There's the orc spellcaster. And now I'm finishing up the elf archer. I need to do a couple of things. I need to do something with the eyes. And then these guys reacted to the divorce by just getting, stepping out. This one reacted a little bit more sadly. This is a sad elf divorcee. And as you can see, it's all sort of tan and stuff, but except for the quiver, which was left over. But I painted the tips of the bow that same green, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So I'm going to paint them black and then try to put some eyeballs in there, because the orc has eyeballs and she has eyeballs, but he doesn't have eyeballs. So I'm going to try to do that and finish this one up then. The only thing other than fixing the bow and the eyes is painting the base, which is a neutral gray color with a black wash. And I'm going to do that at the same time I do the halfling warrior. The halfling warrior is pretty much just, scale armor, some plate up here, kind of a skirt thing that I'm going to be painting a really dark red and a lighter dark red for the bag. And then maybe, I don't know, maybe something on the belt, but not terribly much. Nothing real fancy there, I think. So I got some metallic colors out. The sword is got these runes on it. So I'm going to paint it kind of a darker shade of metallic, and then do the edging and the runes with a bright color. We'll see how this goes. I have another holder thing here that I can use for this figure. I'm going to kind of dive right in. About 10:30, I'm going to get a phone call. I need to take that call. So I'm going to put the break thing on, push the break button and take the call, and then it shouldn't be long, like 20 minutes or so, but longer than I usually have as a break. But yeah, it's just something that has to be done. Business has to be done. It shall. So it will. People misuse shall. Shall is supposed to be used. A long time ago in grade school, I learned that shall is used only with the first person, like I shall do that. Maybe we shall if you're part of the group, otherwise not. But it's taken on other meanings now, like it's an emphasis. It's like, you will do this. Okay, well, that tells the story. You're going to do it, right? But no, It's not enough. You have to say, you shall do this. And then you know that if you say you shall do this, that you will. I said shall for a reason. I'm going to put the spellcaster up there and the gnome cleric. They're labeled up there. Nicole labeled them for me so that I wouldn't, get them confused somehow. Now, granted, I'm a little on the old side, and sometimes I can become slightly incoherent, but really, I needed to know that this was an archer, because I wouldn't have been able to tell otherwise. I'm going to put my head magnifiers on here so that I can fix the bow tips, just paint them black, and take a look at the face to see what I can do, if anything, with the eyes. Tempted to try to paint them like blue, but I think all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the same black. I'm just going to put black dots on. That's where I would often use the very, very fine-tipped felt pen, but I'm not doing that on the face. The face is hard to touch up on this model, and that ink, it doesn't, I don't always get it where it needs to go. The objective or goal, or whatever you want to call it, the thing I'm trying to get done today is the other minifig, so that they'll be finished. And then I will go back either to the Savoya, which needs to be worked on, or if not the Savoya, my desk display sized figure of my character. Now, this will be fun to paint. Okay, well, here we are, 11 minutes in, and I'm starting to put paint on because I want to get this done before the phone call comes. Just a flat black. I said the green. There was a reason for the green, and it was a good reason in terms of the backstory of this particular figure. The reason was that when he decided to go beige, he kept his quiver and his arrows. It was one thing to buy beige clothes. It was the other to give up his quiver. He didn't want to do that. He liked his quiver, so it stayed green. And it was, well, then the parts of the bow that were visible, they would be the same green as the quiver. And so that was the reason why, but the result was it just looked bad. So now it's just going to be black. No, it won't. It won't jump out quite like that. That was the problem, is it was too, just too much of the wrong color, So this will make it kind of invisible. You'll still see that it's a bow, but it won't call attention to itself like the green was. Out of place. Green was out of place. You just call it that. It's not good. Thing that's not good that I just said, oh, that's not good, is that I'm starting to get a cramp in my hand. Weird. Very rarely, if I get a cramp, it's usually in my left hand from just holding these things, but my fingers are cramping up on my right hand, just right here. I doubt in a while whether or not that was going to interfere with the relaxing painting that is happening here. It's just a flat black. I didn't want a glossy. Okay. Get out what's left of my tiniest brush and try to paint eyeballs. Fig. That probably isn't going to work. Usually what happens is I get one in just the right spot. And it's like, oh, that eye looks good. Usually it's the left eye. Not always, but usually. And then I try to paint the other one, but because I'm just like one-handed for all practical purposes, and if I can't get the figure in just exactly the right spot, that's going to look okay. I got some on the arrow up here. I'm going to say that's not going to show. Okay. He's now finished except for the base. So that will be that. That will be that. Okay. Leave it on the stand, but I'm going to set the stand down. The reason I'm going to set it down is because if it falls down, it could fall and break the bow and the arrow, and not only break it, but the parts could go flying. And if the parts go flying, then I can't find them, and then I can't. Well, then it's broken. And that's that. That's the end of that. So the elf archer is just going to be here like that. Here, I'll turn it around so it's facing you. That's better. Get out this one and let's see what I'm into here. Yeah, pretty much just metallic armor, a scale mail, bare feet. There's claws. Looks like it's supposed to be a dragon. Maybe I'll do something with the little claws. I'm not sure. So I'm going to paint the face and the hands first. I usually do that because then I can see where they are, and they're usually the hardest thing to reach. And then halfling ears, I have to remember to paint those. I usually forget the ears. Let me pick a skin tone. Skin tone colors aren't always very good, but we'll choose one. Did what I did manage to do is get out all sorts of colors here. So it's become a mess again. Can't I find the one I want? Is it already out somewhere? As I talk to myself as I'm looking for the one. I'm going to take these off while I'm looking. They're uncomfortable. I was looking at the color chart to knock things over as I'm doing it. And then there's my color chart is just pieces of paper that I splotched paint on. The bone white wouldn't be too terribly bad. You could flush. But there's medium, flat. Flat is this one. Okay. But I was going to give her a little darker complexion, a bronze flesh tone. And I couldn't find that one right off. I don't think I took it out. I found the medium one. They should be all together here. Well, I'm just going to keep looking because the color I want. If it got up with the yellows somehow, maybe it did. Looking at the yellows and the oranges and the reds. Well, this is a thing. What's up with that? That is very weird. That color isn't. I can't find it. Well, the rest of these are actually put away pretty well. Huh. You know, I can find the different colors of blues and greens. Just that one is missing. Well, this is a good way to use up time anyway, I guess. Those are down there. The ones on the bottom are supposed to be extras, you know, colors I don't need because I've got more than one of the bottles. I'll end up using this one, but that's. I have to keep humping. I'm going, Rump for rump for rump. How can that one be missing? Well, I didn't expect to have to do this. It's just annoying, really annoying. That and I keep pulling out doing the same thing, expecting a different result. That's not helping, is it? Nope. Thinking maybe it got. There it is. It was mistakenly set up. Well, now I've got even more out. It was mistakenly set up in the metallics. Okay, well, I wasted a couple of minutes doing that, so let me get going here. Like I said, about 10:30, about 2 minutes before 10:30, so not very long from now, I'm going to be getting a phone call that I need to pick up. And when the call comes in, I'll be hitting the break button, and I should be maybe 20 minutes, give or take 5. That's my guess is that that's about how long it'll take. And so, yeah, it's something I need to do is take that phone call because it's an important call with someone with whom I need to speak. And this is the only time they were available. Something fell. Weird. Using this brush too much, it's going to wear out too. Yeah. I think I've said several times now I need to order new brushes. Just have to because they're not supposed to wear out. I think it's the way I clean them. I think I might be abusing them somehow. These back on. Usually I don't wear these when I'm just doing a base coat like this, but I found that if I don't wear them when I'm putting on a base coat like this, that what happens is that I end up, when I do put these on for detail look, it shows up all sorts of flaws that I didn't know that were there, but they were. This one, because it has longer bristles, it'll give me a better reach into these areas down here. Chin. Come on. Ugh. I went from not having enough paint on the brush to just way too much. Hitting the perfect mediumness here. I remembered the ear this time. Ear. These particular prints really went out of their way. Ears sticking out through the hair. Gee. Yeah, I think those are metallic gloves. This brush has rogue bristles. The bristles split the tip. Just keep finding that to happen. There are some brushes that are actually quite expensive, and the bristles on those they bend all over the place. They're terrible. I spent like $12, $15 on a brush. I was told, buy these. These are really good. And they aren't good in that the bristles aren't coherent. Again, maybe it's my fault, the way I use the brush or clean it or something. I might have to admit that. I don't know. But I have had brushes just go bad on me real quickly. In this particular case, I need to do something to get these little bristles. There's like two of them that are separated from the rest of the point of the bristles, which is not good because they would put paint in places where it shouldn't go. Okay, I need to paint her feet. Halflings have, bare feet. In this case, halfling feet, not bare feet. I just can never resist that. Don't say it. Don't. Unshod feet. Unclothed feet. There's no clothing on their feet. And printed models really come out. The detail is always really good. DM does a really nice job of doing whatever needs to be done to the print files to make to give them some nice poses and good character. So they look good. It's going to be, I think, just kind of brown. Well, the call is late. Huh. Surprised at that. Usually the person who is supposed to be calling is very prompt. I'm going to check my phone to make sure that it's operating correctly. Trying to get the point, get the bristles coherent. So this is how women during World War II killed themselves, is trying to keep the points on their brush coherent like this. Except they did that instead of dipping them like in water like I just did, they'd lick it. Saliva would keep the point because they were painting glow-in-the-dark dials for airplanes and other military equipment. And the thing that made it glow in the dark is it was radium in the paint, and the decay of the radium put off visible light. Well, when they licked the brush, they were eating radium, and that turned out to not be a good thing. I'm just checking to see. The call here. No, it hasn't come in. Oh my. Huh. The caller is in a different time zone. Hey, Aman, thanks for dropping in. Yeah, that was a true thing, and a lot of the women who were painting the dials on the instrument panel dials did in fact get cancer from ingesting the radium. Just an altogether bad thing. I think, well, I'm pretty sure that none of these paints have radioactivity in them. Can't say that for sure. They might. But I'm not licking it, so that helps. Okay, I'm going to paint. Oh, yeah. Sometimes their elbows are uncovered with armor, but these have scale armor on. Okay, so she's got like a skirt. Yeah, I think it's all just metallic armor. So the next bit, going back and forth here, I'm going to paint the inside of this kind of skirt thing she's wearing because it's really hard to reach. And I'll probably get metallic paint. I get it on the legs. I'm going to paint the inside black, flat black, and the outside is called red black. It's a really, really dark red. You can still tell there's red in it, but it's pretty, it's not an ostentatious red. And then there's kind of a fringe around this thing that I might paint. Maybe just like some like steel or dark aluminum. I was thinking maybe of a contrasting red color, but I don't see this character wearing a lot of color. Not it's not like she's beiged out like the archer. Okay, just gave it up and went to different shades of light brown. But as I'm here talking, waiting for the call. It's like, oh, I'll be calling at 10:30. I said, okay, 10:30. But it's pretty clear that they were talking about 10:30 in their time zone, which is 11:30 here. And so the call I was expecting now is not happening now. Nope. It will happen in about an hour. Because they forgot to take into account the time zone when they told me about the time, and I forgot to ask. We bear mutual responsibility. So you can begin to imagine the world in which there weren't standard time zones. And I don't just mean like the difference between standard time and daylight saving time, but I mean it was just a different time everywhere. And for the most part, it didn't matter. I don't think people didn't have watches or clocks. The village might have had a clock. Yeah, I'm getting this paint all over the legs, so it's good that I'm doing this. I'm going to have to see if I can do it like this, upside down. I really can't get a brush in there. I'm going to have to go up Yeah, this is one of those design engineer disasters. Is a brush. A brush does not go there. Fortunately, the metallic paint will cover pretty well because in my efforts to get the black paint on this inside of the cloak, getting it all over the rest of it. Did have the bristles together, but now they're not anymore. I'm going to have to not lick the radium off. Get it down somehow. Okay, I think the parts that are visible are painted black now. Boy, that just made a mess everywhere. I just gave up trying to be careful. As you can see, I have given up trying to be careful there. Oh, becoming skid. Okay. Yeah. And then the railroads came. That's when the time zone thing really became a problem. Well, yeah, and the time ship travel would be practically impossible, especially since to measure longitude, they were dependent upon knowing, having accurate clocks, but clocks set to what? So every ship would set it to their home port time. Okay. But your chronometer on the ship that you used to detect your position was set for your home port, but every home port had different times. And so, that made meeting up at sea difficult. You couldn't make appointments very easily. Right. They couldn't, they didn't know where they were just because of the time issue. And then with railroads, people would like to have known when was the, well, no, well, yeah, the early clocks, the ones that worked with pendulums, pretty clearly, if a pendulum clock was not going to work on a ship because it kept rocking and rolling and upsetting the pendulum. So it wasn't until the invention of chronometers. We don't think of it as being a huge deal. It's like a clock's a clock, right? But having chronometers that would keep time at all on a moving ship was just a huge breakthrough. And then with railroads, it's like you like to know when the train is going to show up so you could be there for the train, or when you're going to get into a place so that you could, maybe set up an appointment there or something. Well, these bristles, this is a good brush. I really am annoyed by this. The bristles just keep coming apart. They get bent a little bit on the bottom, just a little bend in it, and then they stay that way. But eventually, people once there were fairly accurate timekeeping devices, other than like a sundial, which would tell you what time it was relative to where the sun was in the sky, which was better than nothing. Until there were accurate timekeeping devices that would work on moving places like trains and uh, Yeah, building the bridge from either side. And it's like, oops. Well, the time zone thing, I just got caught in the time zone thing. Yep, because the call I was expecting at 10:30 is going to happen at 10:30, but it's going to happen at 10:30 in a different time zone because neither party thought about it. So instead of hitting the break button 14 minutes ago, I'm going to be hitting the break button in about 45 minutes. I think I'm going to paint the chainmail now. The armor, the metal armor. I'm going to be painting it. I don't want it real bright. Yeah, that would have been a good trade-off. That would have been cost effective, as they say. Yes, go ahead. I can sort of read the chat screen. And I hope this isn't too dark. I changed my mind. I'm going to use this. I'm going to put a gray wash on it. I don't want it to be too dark. I changed my mind. I'm not going to use the duraluminum. I'm just going to use aluminum if I can find it. Of course, I can't find it. No, that's a really. I think people are used to that. Um, the whole family thing, the caring about someone so much that you'll do anything and everything to keep them going. I don't think is a scary story to anybody anymore. It's a story they can relate to. I think that would be okay. Yeah, I don't see a problem with that at all. What I do see a problem with is not finding the bottle. You can't see it. Okay, I'm going to show it to you. So I was looking for the aluminum paint in the place where it should have been put away, and it wasn't put away, so it was right in front of me. Yeah, that's a good story. If you think you're going to do something that's going to be working well, and then something happens and they don't know why it's not working, and they don't really know what is working or isn't working, and then something like that happens. I don't think that's scary. I like that. Ah, okay. And so pretty much she was transferred into the doll. Yeah, yeah. I I can follow that. But at the same time, they did manage to save her, which couldn't have happened otherwise. Okay, well, if you're listening to the story, that's one thing. If you're the family and that happened, they would be scared. So when the backstory is played out, they would have been totally freaked until they figured out what happened. And then part of the story would be probably them coming to terms, and understanding of what happened in terms of the transformation. Mm-hmm. So to someone who was listening to the story, or hearing it as the backstory was explained in the game, I don't see that as being a scary thing, but I could see it as the listener very much understanding how scary it was for the people participating, for the family members. And they could understand that then. They could understand how that was happening. So this is going to look really shiny, but I'm going to tone it down with a wash later, so that it's not just like overwhelmingly brilliant. We don't want her armor to be like glaring. But I think this is the right color base coat. Otherwise, I'll get too dark. Yeah. So she, in the parlance of our group, she had a very good tragic backstory. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Trying to get the paint in here. Yeah, so she lost her parents and needs to bring her grandfather as her only living relative. I think that explains a lot. That's good storytelling. And I think it holds together pretty well. And the grandfather, especially, like if the parents didn't survive the process, that explains even more why the grandfather would be, got silver paint. I'm going to have to do some flesh colored touch up later because I bumped it with the brush. I did my usual thing of moving the brush up to the work surface and smashing it into a spot. It shouldn't be painted. Oh, That's an issue with, I don't know if I can help with that, because that's a really interesting conundrum. If her life force was transferred to the doll, why did the doll age? It just, how did that happen? Because ordinarily, that wouldn't be a thing that would happen. Let's see. How could you explain that? Maybe what happens is that the life force, it has its own existence, right? Maybe the life force, regardless of the vessel, whether it's a flesh body or whether it's a doll or a box or whatever, maybe it is that the life force is the thing that ages, and it just takes. Oh my, what's going on here? I missed her thumb. I was even using the head magnifiers, and I missed a whole part of her hand. Wow, that's like that was not good. Yeah, I was trying to be careful, and being careful did not work. The being careful part was a total failure. I think that's how it would work. Is that the soul inside is the thing that is in control of the shell, the body, regardless of what the body is. And it's the soul inside that determines the evolution of it, the changes. And so it would make sense that the doll that is now containing her would age just as she would have. Yeah, I can go with that. I can buy that as a plausible explanation. I shouldn't have gone with a darker color. See how this turns out. Sure, I didn't miss any places because this paint is pretty close to the white. Well, it's not really. Never mind what I was muttering to myself. I was going to say it was hard to tell what I painted and what I haven't, but it was just the way the light was on it. I think it's a good color because it will take a wash, and I don't have to use a really dark wash on it. And so definitely I need to do some flesh touch up on the thumb that was never painted. And probably on her face. I'll do that after I paint the hair. And I'm going to put eyes on her as well. So I'll be painting her hair and eyebrows. I think she's going to have blue eyes. with this armor, it's going to be pretty simple and straightforward. I'm just going to put a gray wash on it. And it won't be very much. It'll be a light gray wash. It won't show much at all. It'll just sort of dull down, temper the shininess of it, and bring out some of the detail of the scale. At least that's the intent. Okay. But it won't be it won't be like the reliquary of a lich. I mean, that would be a totally different kind of magic. But I understand that. Purple sapphire is a good choice. You should have one printed up. You can get like a transparent kind of rosin, and could probably have one rosin printed. Does she know her life force is in the sapphire? Is she aware of that? Okay, well, his brush became even worse. The coherence. Okay, she doesn't know. So tell me about the gem. Does she just keep it with her all the time? Is it like a locket? How does she know not to part with it? I guess I'm going to ask. How would she know that? I'm going to paint her hair kind of like the rest, like I paint wood. I'm going to put a really light undercoat on, and then put the smoky ink wash. Ah, okay, got it. I wasn't sure, but it makes sense now that that would be the case. I'm glad I asked. That really helped clarify it. Appreciate that. I'm going to paint. I'm going to do the eyes. This is nice green blue color, blue green. Mm-hmm. Just a itsy bitsy little brush. Try to do this with just dots of paint. Oh my, that's not good. Sorry, the paint is coming out. Okay, because she's drawing. I get it. The energy is drawn from her heart, and when she accidentally learned how to animate something, it could have been sapping some of her life energy. Huh, interesting. That's a good part of her story. tiny little dots of paint is that they dry on the brush, and then I just have a blob of dry paint on the tip of the brush, which is useless. Please do that. I get it. Down on the nose. Okay, I can fix that fairly easily later on, though. Oh, I see. Nerve-wracking for him, yeah. Uh, so the regeneration thing, uh-huh. And then she knows she's probably aware of not remembering certain things, right? I mean, she knows she's not remembering some things, or thinks she should. Or is it that the kind of thing where if you're not can't remember something, you don't know that you're not remembering it? Okay, I'm going to use this. This is a very light base color. And most of painting the hair isn't too bad, but painting the eyebrows is a little tricky. It came out okay. The sword is just like in exactly the wrong place when it comes to painting her hair. Like, what are you going to do? Just put your sword, hold your sword right in front of your face. Hold it right there, please, so that whoever's trying to paint this can't reach it. Let me ask this about her. If she uses her energy, is she aware of the fact that she then needs to sleep basically until it comes back? And then does she plan around that? Or is it just something that's kind of a surprise to her? You know, like she does something and then she just feels exhaustion and doesn't really understand why. Putting the wash on this is going to be just as delicate as painting the base coat. But there it is. Her hair is a pretty visible part of the model, so it needs to be done with a little bit of attention to, highlighting some of the detail. I see. Okay. So so she just finds that she just feels exhausted and needs to sleep. Just getting into my detail painting silence here. I'm told the viewers many times that I can't do two things at once. I can't talk and paint little detail at the same time. There was a time I probably could do that. Okay, so it's just, it just overwhelms her. Does she come to understand that it's related to her use of her energy? Does she eventually just, come to understand how they're related? So she can prepare for it or know that it's coming? Or does it always just pretty much catch her by surprise? Okay. At this point in her life, it's still pretty limited. That fits. But eventually, as she uses it more frequently, what's with this? Are there holes in her head? Little black spots there. I've never seen that before. They're like tiny little voids. Tiny little voids in the print, right in the top of her head. They were so small that the paint covered it, but it was just kind of weird seeing it. Okay, that'll be a good color once once the wash is on it. It'll be kind of a reddish. We'll give it a reddish tint. I need to do some. I got the ear, got the top of her ear, but I need to do the flesh colored touch up anyway. Yeah, that would be surprising. Okay, so she's realized that she has some sort of energy and power, and like you said, she's running a toy shop, and so she uses it that way. But that she just feels tired after she's using it. But that's she just feels tired. That all makes a lot of sense. I need to do some face touching up and some ear touching up. I'm going to do the flesh touch up near the end because I have some little spots like around there as well. I'm going to paint her bag and then her skirt thing. And I'm going to use this thing called Scarlet Red. I haven't used this in a long time. We used to use this a lot. So as she develops, as things develop in the game, um, as things develop in the game, she'll be able to heal. Will she be able to heal other party members too then? Okay, what I'm going to do and use only 2 colors here, is there's some embellishments on the bag. I'm going to paint the bag scarlet red and have the detail this black red. And then her skirt will just be the opposite. It will be dark red with a little bit of scarlet red around the edges. That way there'll be a little bit of detailing, but not an overuse of color. Mm-hmm. Okay. So she's going to discover her ability to heal her party members then. Okay, she takes on the wounds, and then after she takes on the wounds, it heals them, but then she has to recover while she heals. I understand that. I understand how that works now. I want to paint the bag just to see how this color works. And then when I paint the dark red, I'll paint the trim on the bag because I'll have that color out. And then I'll come back with this color and paint the edging on her skirt-like thing. It's going really fast today. It's yeah, I think these darker reds will be okay. To be a pretty nice saturated color, but not real flashy like the orc and the gnome. Oh, okay. So well, that's going to be interesting, though, as the party progresses. She doesn't want to be known as the healer, but that she can. So it would only be like an urgent, so they wouldn't depend upon her for healing. But if there's like an urgent situation, an emergency situation, she might reveal her ability to do it or be willing to make the sacrifice necessary to do it. Is there another healer in the party? I think you mentioned this before, but I don't remember. Like a cleric or something? That paint's going to take a while to dry. Oh. Yep, always important to keep rotating it, because there are always spots that aren't painted. Okay, that's okay. That's a good color. I really like that. We used to use scarlet red a lot, and then hadn't used it in quite a while. Okay, well, it makes sense that, as part of the recovery. As if she were, if you were in a battle and she used up her energy keeping someone alive. Maybe she'll have to, you don't know. And then pretty much just faint because of the exhaustion that she'd be experiencing. And that could happen. Okay, I'm going to use a little brush here. See if there's another brush I can use. This used to be a really good brush. Oh, okay. So you're waiting on those. Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to use this little bitty brush to get the edges. Okay. Where it meets the other colors and around the edges and things. And then because there's a pretty big surface area, I'm going to use this brush to fill it in. Yeah. So in an emergency, it would be like somebody's about to die and they're really critical to the fight, and she makes a huge sacrifice. That could be an interesting part of the story. But if she makes a huge sacrifice and takes on the wounds herself, then that's all she'd be able to do. She would be taken out of the. Okay, that's probably something you will need to spend points on, right? Is that she learns more and more about the power that she has. That would be that kind of a development. Are any of the other characters developed yet at all, or is ours the very first one? Oh my! Yes, five. They are 5 rounds is a really long time in a fight. I mean, basically, that's the entire thing. When it comes right down to it, that is, if a fight lasts much longer than that, there are some other issues, some other real serious dangers that the group is facing. I'm painting the stuff that I'm hoping to highlight with the other color, the scarlet red. I'm going to be painting them this color first, and then overpainting with that color. And that way I make sure that it's at least colored, right? And after I do that, I'll probably have to come back with this one, almost certainly have to come back with this one to touch up the spots that where the line wasn't clear, wasn't well done. Getting close to the time. It's getting close to 10:30 in the time zone from which the other party will be calling. Get myself into a situation where I can't set this down. So just as a reminder, I'm expecting a phone call that I must take, that I was expecting at 10:30. And then I realized it was 10:30 Central Time, not 10:30 Eastern Time. So it's going to be at 11:30. So in the next 5 minutes or so, I understand. So it's an ability she'll develop, but definitely not one she starts with. And might not even realize she has it probably at the very beginning. And the other party members aren't going to know. It's not going to be an obvious thing until it's essential, right? Until it becomes a thing that absolutely has to happen. It came out okay. It's good. These two colors go well together. Good, because I'm using one on top of the other. This call is going to come at an awkward time. So I'm going to work hard to get these edges painted well enough so that when the call comes, before I'm done with them, when they dry, it won't be a problem before I put the rest of the color on. There's going to be a little bit of probably will be able to be a little bit of a place where the colors will, well, not the colors, but where it'll be clear that the texture of the paint. It'll show. It'll be a little lump. I'm going to right around where her bag is. Yeah, it makes sense that they would all, come on later, because that's absolutely right. If everything is there right at the start, then there's no character development. There's no progression. So it makes a lot of sense that as you're developing the character, that these things that she would be like learning and discovering about herself later on are not things she has right at the beginning. Doing here is using the darker color for the trim on the bag, and I'm going to use the bag color for trim on the skirt. So they'll complement each other without ending up having to use a whole bunch of different colors. Did the light burn out or did I not turn it on? No, it's just not aimed right. Yeah, well, the initial thing is her strings, right? Those are the things she knows and uses. Okay. Here's the call. I need to take a break. I'll be back in about 20 minutes or so. It came back. Okay. Well, it wasn't too bad. About 15 minutes, I guess. Yeah, we're trying to settle something and it didn't get settled. So, oh well, that's how things go sometimes. Well, this is coming along. I'm going to put the wash on the hair now. I'm going to do that now because then I can touch up the flesh color, which needs touching up on the ear and under the eye and the thumb that I missed earlier. So you're going to see a pretty significant change in color here. This is a really nice, I really like this wash. It's brown, but it's got some red in it. It creates a really nice, rich, change in tone. This brush is failing on me. And it's giving a good color, and it's like a wash is supposed to. It's settling into the deeper spots. So the deeper spots are darker, and the upper spots are lighter. And an artist would actually go back over this with the lighter color and highlight the tips, the high spots, but I'm not an artist, and so I'm not going to because I can't. I mean, I probably could, but it doesn't work that well when you don't have the skill. Okay, I got it down on the armor a little bit. I'll have to pull out the metallic and just touch that up. After I'm done with the hair, I'm going to paint the edging on the skirt kind of cloak thing. Oh, eyebrows. I forgot about the eyebrows. Yeah, I'm not going to use this brush for that. This brush is not going to work for the eyebrows. I'm going to have to get out the smaller one. I was trying not to, but the trying not to isn't going to work. Just going to switch now. No, I was wrong. This is the brush I want to use. I was thinking. Tiny little spots right behind the sword. the sword right in front of your face thing. Let's not be able to reach the eyebrow. That was kind of a pain. Okay, I'm back from the phone call. And then I got, all caught up in getting the hair here. And it's coming out mostly okay. Touch ups on the edges, have to do the tips, right? Yeah, that's going to make a mess. I'm not going to do that. No, this is okay. So I'm going to stop there. Pinkish eyes. Yeah, I mean, a purple sapphire would be a really good color. Here, I've got, I'm going to pull out a color chart for you. So when you do a minifig of your character, and you should, it's a really nice, just like purple. The royal purple is really good. Or this heavy violet is really nice. It's got a little more blue in it, a little less red. I think that's a really good color. And you can maybe even get it in gloss coat, or you might be able to just put this purple on and then put a little bit of dab of a gloss clear coat over it, just to finish it off. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is do the edging on her cloak thing. I still think that when you get this character going, if you make a minifig of it, you can make a minifig of her. That's really nice. So that will give you a nice picture of her. Have you thought about having a minifig made up of her? And then as an accessory, okay. If you ever do, stay in touch with us about that. But as an accessory, as I'd mentioned earlier, if you can, I just have to sigh. There's there's a spot that isn't covered. And this happens sometimes when painting a larger area, the paint will pull away and leave a dot. And there's a dot right there. I've got a bristle on this brush that's not behaving. This is brush failure day, brush dissolution day. What I was saying is, I'll go back to this as an accessory, not part of the character, but just like something you could keep, is to have okay, is to get a transparent purple heart printed to represent the purple sapphire heart. It's kind of subtle, but I think just having this lighter red edging, it looks nice. So was that repair of her dress, is that something that's built into the dress itself, or is that something that she did with her ability to repair things? Was that like a magic item she got at some point? In terms of the backstory? Okay. Just like with her dolls, right? Doesn't want to see it hurt. So she used some of her ability on her clothing. Probably when it was like hurt sometime, maybe, she had a tear in it or something and said, "Oh, I can take care of that." And so she did. Why can't I get the paint on this edge? Okay, I didn't understand that. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that's a good question. Is it just like a superficial repair? Or do you actually get a restoration of like your hit point? Not your hit point, but your attack defense. Hmm. Which way did the DM go? Oh, okay. That was it was a purely cosmetic repair and doesn't affect the combat. That actually seems pretty fair. It's a real temptation. Try to make a character overpowered. I mean, it just really is when there's an opportunity to do that. I played with someone once. It was not exactly D&D. It was a similar game, and it was just demanding and making up all sorts of abilities, and it wasn't any fun. You end up with a character that's essentially invulnerable, that does huge amounts of damage, and it's like, why? Things were going okay, and then I just totally held the brush in the wrong direction. Well, I had to touch up a spot anyway, but I wasn't expecting to have to touch up a big chunk like that. Good job making a mess here at the end. Okay, before I do the flesh touch-up, I have to do the black red touch-up, and keep that out to remind myself of that. Yeah, I mean, she would feel badly. That, of course she would. It's just like a toy being broken or hurt. She doesn't like to see things hurt or damaged. That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to paint the parts of the sword that are dark. And this is around her hand. There's the little bits of the sword there that are like in her hand. And know that if I touch it with this paint, and it's likely to happen, that then I'll have to do flesh color touch up. I don't want to have to go back and forth too many times. Okay, that makes sense too. So the main part of this darker color is the inside of the sword, because there's runes printed on it. And I want those to show. So what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to paint this insert dark, and then dry brush over it, and hopefully highlight the runes that are painted, and then the edge of the sword will be that lighter color as well. But I'm hoping that what happens is that this darker color of metallic will show off that detail really well. I don't know if it will or not. It might be something that I have to paint over a couple of times. But this is the intent anyway. Get the paint down in all the nooks and crannies and crevices. It's the runes. And then also I'm using this darker color down here on the hilt. This will be painted the lighter, this bit right here. With this part that's touching her hands is the darker color. Thing on time. Get about this last hour usually goes really fast. I was thinking I have a really good chance of finishing this today. I'm not sure though. Just a lot of it depends on how these last bits go in terms of doing touch up and highlighting the bits of the sword here. Yeah, it will be a lot like a bag of holding. Everybody needs a bag of holding. I mean, I'm not kidding. It really is true. And I think that, they're really expensive, rare magical items, but I think just in terms of gameplay, you just want to carry a bunch of stuff with you. It's like in the old text adventures and things. It was, if you ever found something, you better take it, because you never know when you might need that little bit of rock, or the amulet, or the gum that was left on the bottom of a desk or something. You might need those things. Sometimes they can be put, you just don't know how you're going to need them or why, but they just turn out to be useful things. Sometimes not necessarily, to move the adventure along, but just to add the interest to it, to make it fun. And so I think DMs should always set up a scenario in which you can either take a pouch that she has and turn it into effectively as a bag of holding by just increasing its capacity over time, or letting players find them. They're too expensive to buy, but have an occasion for someone to be like gifted a bag or find it. Because when you're playing a game, I find it's just, you don't want to be bothered with having to manage the weight of your inventory, or make decisions about whether to get rid of something that's kind of cool but heavy, that really has no use other than maybe a cosmetic thing or a fun thing in the game. But why should you have to give it up? I think that's just my opinion, is it just makes the game more fun to not have to worry about the weight of your inventory. I hope your DM allows it. Even if you have to pay for it, with points later on, or however it's played out. Okay. I need to fix her skirt thing. I'm going to do that now because the paint is dry on it. I need to do some repair on the skin, put a gray wash on the armor, maybe a little bit of brown wash on the hands and feet, just to show the toes, and then work on the sword and see if I can make that work. So like with a bag of holding, you just hang on to junk. I think it's fun in a game to just carry a lot of junk around because you just never know when it might be fun to use your junk. The things that you pick up. And they can be essentially valueless. You don't have to get into like a big thing about selling them to vendors and trying to make money off of them or anything. It's just you carry them around because they might be fun to use later on. Okay, well, that turned out all right. Now the flesh. Yeah, I need to fix face. I need to fix all sorts of little spots. Oh, wait, there's also did I do this? Is there a spot that needed? No, that needs a color. Sorry, I'm just turning the model around and I'm seeing a spot that it just looks really out of place. Yeah, that's much better. I thought there was a spot where I needed to repair the metallic, but I'm not seeing it now. Right up here under the hair in the back. What I'm doing now is like one little spot of color after the other. Just doing some touching up before I do the major touch up on the flesh. There was this little spot at the back of her hair. Sometimes that's it. Is it hardly even worth it? Just a spot of paint. Right, there's all sorts of little places here. There's a thumb that I missed. There's a tip of an ear that needs to be fixed. I'm going to do the most obvious parts first. It's where her eyeball leaked onto her nose. It wasn't much, but it was important. Yeah, they're here. And didn't get painted. And see if I can fix that. This is another one of those. I can't believe I bumped it like that. Where was it? No. What's going on here? I bumped into something with the flesh colored paint where it definitely shouldn't have been. Now I don't see it. I don't understand what happened. I hope maybe I'll see it later. I'll probably find it later. It'll probably be an issue. That's it. I'm hoping that was it. Okay. Check the feet. Spots where the metallic got down onto the feet. Just way too far. It doesn't look good. Almost, almost done. I'm going to put a little bit, tiny bits of brown wash in the hands and the feet, just so that they don't look so lifeless, okay? Not very much, just tiny, tiny touches of it, trying to keep it really light. Oh, wow, that was 1,000 times more than I needed or wanted. I'm going to start with the feet. Almost dry brushing it on, just to, show the separation of the toes more than anything. It's pretty subtle, but it's working. I want to do the same thing with the fingers because they show up in front. Bit of brown wash on there. Show the separation of the fingers. Now, the last thing is to put gray wash on the armor. And I'm using very, very light. What tool is that? Practically a dowel? How will that work? I'm interested in what you have in mind there. Okay. Huh. That's pretty fun. I like that. That's a real interesting thing. So are those there are things like a camera and a microphone? Are those things in the game? Or are these just like magic effects that have the same effect as it? Yeah, a flashlight. That wouldn't. Why not? Why not have a flashlight, right? Okay. So if this works, and I hope it does, um, the armor will be somewhat less shiny, and the scale pattern will be more obvious. I am trying to avoid using a dark gray wash because it will make everything much darker. I mean, that's why it's called dark gray. Instead, I might use several applications of this, which is very lightly pigmented, but will dull down the shininess and hopefully pick up the patterning in the armor. Use it pretty heavily because I want the what pigment there is to build up in all the creases and crannies and stuff. And like I said, I might put several coats on. I'm going to let it dry, see how it looks. And then, while I'm waiting for it to dry, I'm going to work on the sword to see if I can pull off the effect that I'm wanting to pull off on the sword. Which is the parts that are raised will be shiny. I don't have a before and after, but this is actually working. I mean, it's not showing. It's not real intense, but it is putting pigment where I want it. And it, like I said, it might take more than one coat to do what I'm trying to do. But well, we'll go. And I'm going to see what I'm going to do, what I can do on the sword here. I didn't know that. Okay, got it. Okay. So just like just little things like that are pretty cheap. That's nice. I'm going to use this chrome. It's supposed to be really bright, shiny thing. I'm going to work on the sigil parts first, and then the edges. The edges are easy to do, relatively speaking. The sigil parts aren't. Oh, this is going to go. I'm going to be really careful. I'm going to sort of almost be dry brushing this. Should it be paint on here only on the high spots? It's sort of working. And paint the edges here while I'm at it. Almost doing. Hopefully I haven't looked yet. Is I am almost getting this chrome paint on her head. Because I've been like bumping the brush. Yeah, fortunately I didn't bump the part of the brush that had paint on it. Almost, but not quite. Just did it again. Sometimes it's really hard to see the contrast in these metallics, but then you hit it under the right light and they jump right out. So I don't know how they're going to show up on camera. You know, like it's worth the effort or not. Not sure. Okay. So they're cheap to get, but you might not be able to keep them, huh? Yeah, I know. It doesn't look like much, but I'm going silent because I'm trying to be careful. I don't want to have to do a lot of touching up with the sword blade. In this light, it's really nice. And oh man, I just did the thing I said I didn't want to do. I bashed it right into her head. Now she's got a shiny, bright spot on her head. Let's see if I can make that disappear with a wet cloth. I set this down. Yeah, I was going, oh, things are going okay. Things are going okay. And then bang, the thing that is most... Okay, well, I need to touch up her head. Oof. Sounds like a good thing for a villain. Should use the right paint. I'm marking the runes here. And then I'll do the sword edge, and then I'll get the silver paint out of her hair. So dumb, so careless. What good is this stream if there isn't a major oops at some point? It's like why did that happen? How could you be such a dolt? You make such a mess. It really is a feature of this stream. When is it going to happen? What's it going to be? How many weeks will it take to fix it after it's done? There's always that question, like with the Savoya, where it took an entire, like, four streams to fix a problem that I should have never had if I had gone through the trouble of testing. Through the trouble of testing the coverage of this paint that I hadn't used before. The sword's coming out okay. Everything always looks worse under these magnifiers, but I am finding I really can't do anything without them. It just makes everything so much more possible when I have them on. Yeah, I think that looks okay. The runes actually do stand out against the darker color underneath. This sword edge looks okay. To fix her hair, what I'm hoping is that I can just use this wash and make it darker and not have to do a base coat, recoat. Basically, I'm just hoping I can do a cover up here. Yeah, you just go back to the stylist and say, I need a retint of the little spots. Yes, that worked. It looks like I might be able to finish today. What is it, 12? Yeah, I can. I'm going to put another coat of the gray wash on the armor just to try to darken things up a little bit again. And then I'm going to paint the bases, and that'll be done. I'm daubing this on fairly heavily because, again, there isn't much pigment in it. And what there is, I want it to pool up in the nooks and crannies in the armor so that it gets a little bit of like texture, so you can see the scaliness of the scale armor and the bends and embellishments and rivets and stuff. And then I'm going to stop messing with it because I'm not sure it's going to get much better. Okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to get the archer back out as well, and the bases, I use a little brush. Maybe I'll just use this one since it's working. Paint around their feet, and then use a larger brush like this to finish painting it, and then use this bigger brush as well to put some daub, just daub the black wash all over it, make it look kind of lumpy. And I use this neutral gray, and I'm going to try really hard to not knock them over. As the work surface has gotten totally messy again. Just pulled out all sorts of different colors of paint. I didn't put anything away. The brushes are piling up. The metallics are in the way. Everything's in the way. There. Stuff isn't really on camera anymore. And I'm getting the last half hour syndrome here. The last half hour syndrome is that it just gets colder. It is not any colder than it was actually, but it just feels colder as the stream goes on. And during the last half hour, it feels really chilly, and my nose starts snuffling. I'll be back on Monday, and these guys will be done. So what you'll be seeing on Monday is I'm going to resume work on the Savoia. The initial work is I need to put the exhaust pipes on the engine. It's not a hugely scary, it's just going to be tedious because the attachment points are really tiny. They're supposed to be like these little pins that protrude that fit into little holes. Well, they don't. Okay. And so it's a matter of alignment and holding them in place. So I'm going to be playing around with contact cement and tweezers. It's just going to be that sort of thing. And you haven't seen this in a while, but I'm going to be taking new parts off of the trees, and I'm going to be going back to filing and sanding. To see filing and sanding with Dice and Dungeons starting on Monday as I start to move on to the fuselage of the plane. Done that in weeks. Then the week after next, as we start getting into March, I got some travel again. I'm going to be away for almost 2 weeks, but I'll let people know what that schedule is next week. So definitely not abandoning the stream, but once again, there are places to go and things to do. And so I need to go places. So I'll be away for a while. Pretty good. To give this a denatured alcohol bath. That could have happened. Oh my, what happens? Oh, that's right. What happened to the original body of her? Her original body, which was lost. Oh no. I think that her grandfather would have just given her a very tender funeral. Maybe that would be it. It would be a little, but he'll have to do that very secretively. You don't want her visiting her own grave. That would be bad. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of an unfinished bit, isn't it? Is what happens. But he is her only living relative. And so there could be just a very quiet kind of internment. like in maybe a churchyard or whatever, if there's something like that in the game. Yeah, you could do that, but you'd have to keep it a secret. Very, very much a secret somewhere. I don't know. Is there always like this dim hope that somehow her soul could be returned to her original body? I don't know if you want to keep that as something that the grandfather keeps alive as a possibility or not. I mean, whether it really is a possibility in the game or not is another question. But whether in the storyline the grandfather might consider that. Okay, this gray paint doesn't have to dry completely. As I said before, I want the bases to look blotchy. And so if the paint is still a little bit wet, that's okay. But I am going to yeah, I mean, whether or not that actually really happens, I think is, a decision that can be made much later, but that could be part of the story. And it makes sense that would be part of the story. That he just has this secret wish and secret desire that may or may not ever come to pass. This is just some isopropyl alcohol that I keep in a jar to do some deep cleaning of the brushes when, as you can see there, the paint especially builds up around the base of the bristles. So that would be a secret that would be kept from her completely. And whether or not anything ever comes of it, or she even learns about it or not, is something that could be, developed or not, added or not to the game as it progresses. I'm just trying to get the bristles to cohere again. Didn't mess it up. For this, I'm using the dark gray wash, which used to be out here, not the light gray that I was using. Dark gray. I better cap this up. I know if I didn't, I was going to knock it over and spill it. And I'm going to put it aside so I don't knock it over, spill it, and break it. That would be a thing I could do. Take this up. And then oh yeah. So it's just part of the backstory. Okay, but probably not something that would happen in the game. So the paint on this isn't dry yet, but like I said, I want this to be blotchy. Even if there's bubbles in it, I think that's just fine. Remember to get the edges. And then go back and make it even blotchier if I can. When this dries, it looks like this. It gets a little lighter. Yeah. And you can see the blotchiness of it kind of gives it a little bit of texture. Well, yeah, I mean, after what he did in the ritual kind of going okay and kind of going bad, you could see how he would be very, very cautious now in the future. I'm wrapping up here because this is the last bit I need to do, other than trying to clean up the mess that I've made. It'd take an entire stream the way I got stuff scattered all over the place. So I want to talk about Dice and Dungeons again just a little bit. Dice and Dungeons is a group of family and friends who run a Dungeons and Dragons show, and we stream that on Twitch with a live chat on Sundays at 2, but you can catch all the old episodes on YouTube as a podcast, and I want you to do that. Our show is amazing. It really is a really, really good show. Oh, no. Yeah, you would definitely want to not do that. 3 people died potentially by accident, hopefully not as part of it. Yeah, that would be too much. So if he wants to keep that as a secret, I think that would be fine in terms of his character development and all. But definitely, I think I would definitely avoid making it part of the stream, part of your game. I got wash on her toes. I probably will fix that, but I need to have the wash dry. So I'm going to keep this out. That's the one color that goes on her toes. So Dungeons and Dragons, yes, watch our show. I want to thank Aman for joining in on chat today. I appreciate it. And it's always fun to listen to people develop their characters, because Dungeons and Dragons and similar kind of role-playing games are all about role-playing. And when you role-play, then they just become hugely entertaining, as opposed to just, one sort of serial combat after another. So there's that. And if you want to, just have a chance to take a look at YouTube and watch the development of our characters, because all of ours also have backstories, pretty significant backstories, and they're fun. They're just fun things to do, to learn about it. So those of you who have become followers, thanks again. If you go to YouTube, I think you can become a subscriber, and that would be welcome. We want to increase our viewership, not only for this stream, but also for our D&D show, especially for our D&D show. And you can also go to Patreon. Let me put these up here where people can sort of see them. Patreon.com/Dice and Dungeons and become a patron. And if you become a patron of Dice and Dungeons, you get access to the DM's session notes, where she reveals her secrets about how the game is developed. And sorry, my nose is dripping. How the game was developed and the characters and the world in which we're all living and working and playing. And you can also we do a warm-up improv before we record each session. Sometimes those are just really amazingly, stupidly hilarious. We have a lot of fun putting them together. I'll set this down. You can kind of see it. Yeah, so other than fixing her toes, which got too much wash on them because I was a little less than careful, the divorcees are done. And sometime in an episode in the not-too-distant future, these folks are going to show up on our show. I'm pretty sure that that's the case because the other minifigs I painted, both friends and villains, have showed up in our show. And the foes are pretty nasty, and the villain and the friends are sometimes quite helpful and sometimes not. On Monday, I'm going to be back with the Savoya. This is done. Okay. It looks like this now. And the radiators are actually on. These are the exhaust pipes, which are painted, and they're ready to be attached to the sides of the engine. So that's all that really needs to be done on that. And then what I'll be doing is taking out the parts for the fuselage. And they always have mold marks on them. There's circles that need to be sanded down or filled in. There's little, where the molds come together, there's a little bit that eases out and so on, especially rounded areas like this. There's always something that needs to be sanded off. These parts, like the vertical stabilizer, need to be cemented together like that. There's a gap there that has to be sanded down, filled in and sanded down. So all these parts, I'll be taking them off the trees, getting rid of the extra sprue, and preparing them to be primed and painted. And I might even go ahead and do that with the wings and the floats, because these also need to be, cleaned up and then cemented together. And then the seams, you don't want seams showing on the leading edge or on the, these floats are supposed to be just one solid piece of metal. I'll probably take these parts apart and do what I can. And then I need to make a decision, part of which will be getting a translation of these instructions about the green and white. This whole thing's painted red, okay? Very nice, pretty red color. But I need to decide, they gave us decals for the green and the white stripes on the tail and the wings and the ailerons, okay? Whether to just use the decals or whether I will try to get the right colors paints. And it's not that huge a deal to mask these. There's straight edges, is to mask them and paint them green and white. And I think that would look a lot better if I could actually pull that off. I need to get some nice, the right color green and a glossy white. And I'd have to be really, really good at masking. So that's what I'll be starting to move along on Monday back to the Savoya, because except for a little bit of touching up on her feet. See how they look on Monday. These are done, so I'm going to show them off also on Monday, and just to recap. That used up the time. So, Aman, thanks for joining in. I really enjoyed hearing about the development of your character, especially the backstory. And I learned more about how she happened to be, okay, and how this is tormenting her grandfather, who may or may not appear in your game when you play it. At least he'll be talked about. I hope you come back on Monday. I'll be here about 10 o'clock. Once again, painting, but on Monday, no painting, just filing and sanding with Dice and Dungeons. Catch our show. It's really worthwhile. It's great fun. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a good weekend. See you on Monday.